You just brought up one of the questions I was going to ask, that do we have enough clouds providers in Europe to build a European cloud? I mean, you mentioned Amazon and Google. We are, in terms of large cloud providers, quite dependent on the US. So I don't know, one of you like to kick that off?
If I could chip in. Cloud is just an evolution of, cloud infrastructure is just an evolution of hosting. In the UK alone, the hosting industry is worth about 1.5 billion euros. It's well established. Germany's particularly excels at it, and people like one-on-one internet. Well, all those companies are evolving into cloud providers. As for software as well, that's being built on top of it, we have the capabilities. It's just, unfortunately, the Americans have slightly grabbed the headlines. In my own business, I was doing what Amazon was doing when they were still a bookstore. But the power of Silicon Valley is quite mighty. Also, there is a tendency in Europe to, I don't know, go and buy from the big brand rather than looking local, as you were saying.
I'm going to give a slightly more cautious response to that. There was some very interesting statistics put out by Gartner this summer to do with the public cloud compute market, in which they pointed out that Amazon's sales currently equal 5 times the accumulation of the sales of its next 14 competitors. In the chemical industry, we would have nervously regarded that as something called extreme market domination, and we would have been a bit worried that the European community antitrust people were going to come around and raid our offices quite fast to see what the hell was going on that we got in such a dominant position. So I think the answer is that the market model that has been set by players like Amazon is a very powerful one. I would agree with Kate that I think a lot of the capabilities are there across Europe of established infrastructure investment, but they need to learn very fast from the Amazon model. It is a very powerful model of compute services as compute services. I have a client who's made major use of it this summer to totally convert, to totally recover their reputation for bad service and turn it into very good service by moving on to the Amazon cloud, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I think we have on this panel, 2 really outstanding examples of really clever, innovative European entrepreneurs in Kate and Maurice. I would say, as an American who lived many years in Europe and sort of has roots here, it's not that there's a lack of European innovators. I think that, Kate's example of, I'm quite convinced that she can be in many ways cleverer and quicker and more agile than this lumbering mastodon Amazon. The difficulty in Europe is not the lack of entrepreneurs. It's the inputs, it's the capital markets, it's the regulatory infrastructure that prevents you from shifting easily from, going from Kansas to California is not the same as going from the UK to France. And the ability of, look at Google spending $1 billion on one data center in Finland, and they have 3 or 4 others in Europe, and Microsoft has as many, and Amazon has as many, and Facebook has built. And where do they get that money? They get it from the capital markets, and because the regulatory, so it's the regulation, it's the ability to raise capital, the ability to access a large single market with a limited amount of regulatory those are the reasons, and not the lack of European entrepreneurs.
Actually, I just have to agree. The single reason why my company isn't a £500 million company is that I can't access capital on sane terms. It's just hopeless in Britain and Europe, frankly.
I think the question was about a European cloud.
There are lots of US or highly visible US cloud providers, and do we have enough providers in Europe to compete with that?
Sure. I was just when I hear the term European cloud, I just want to elaborate what exactly that is, because do we in the audience have an understanding what a European cloud is and what we're talking about in terms of European cloud? My interpretation of cloud, is the same as what Kate said a moment ago, but coming from the private sector, implementing cloud solutions is all about politics. Implementing compliance standards as well is all about politics as well. So my question is, do we actually understand what a European cloud is? and what we're actually striving for in the first place. But I think I'd like to take a show of hands and say, do we understand what a European cloud model is, first of all? Or do we need to establish what that is?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I was going to come to my next sort of question or comment. So would it make sense to create a virtual cloud-free trade zone for the EU? Is every country in the Union being protective and preventing that European cloud-free trade zone?
I would like to comment on that because I think that we are too protective within our own borders. When you look at Spain, for example, a lot of people don't have sufficient knowledge of the English language to connect with markets where English is the main language. Slovakian market, it's quite the same. And if you're listening to policymakers, they are trying to create a huge cloud environment, which is not European per se, because I really do not believe that you should lock up Europe within their own cloud. It should be open enough to connect to other markets. But what I basically said was try to connect to those European services to create a marketplace which originates as European and then go beyond borders from the continents.
Richard.
Sorry. Actually, just a point Richard made about the G Cloud in terms of inviting people in to the UK G Cloud. SAS Assurance itself are an Irish organisation, and we're sitting on the G Cloud right now on the G Cloud 4. So essentially, we can bid for UK government tenders right now. There's nothing stopping anybody else in the audience from doing so. So from that point of view, I think to look at it from a case study point of view, I think the UK are actively doing this right now. Obviously, there are constraints in terms of what I can actually offer in terms of the UK government, in terms of the actual. We spoke about the impact levels earlier on. I think it's a good model. I think we, as Europeans, should look at that more closely because it's currently there, it's existing, and it's something I think we can actually learn a lot from.
So is it interoperability of cloud services we need to get across these borders? So all the cloud services should interoperate? Is this I mean, I mentioned X400. Hands up those who remember X400. There's a few more. In 1994, X400 was the only messaging service around. The internet appeared, and X400 messaging, there were little pockets of information. And I think someone was mentioning the phone systems originally. You could only access people in your particular country or zone. Same thing applied to X400. Then the internet came, and everyone could interoperate with everyone else, and it created this system, internet, that we know now. So that was a breakthrough in terms of interoperability. So do we need that sort of thing now?
We do, but it's already out there. So some parts of cloud are very discrete, they're very defined, particularly around the infrastructure element. One of the reasons that Amazon has just kind of gone and run with it so fast is they got a first mover advantage in specifying the APIs. Now, it doesn't matter that their standard is not necessarily the best. If you look at many other standards in the past, VHS versus Betamax, all sorts, just the one that's the most popular wins out invariably. In Europe, what we're still doing is we're preoccupied with coming up with our own technical standards, which will fail. So OCCI, the work that some of the ETSI and other bodies are doing, it's doomed to failure. The world has adopted the Amazon standard. And unfortunately, we need to suck it up and we need to just accept that if we want to be able to play in that space, we need to do it too. At a higher level, you don't need so much interoperability when you're talking about sort of SaaS and above. People just need to be able to build on the platform that Richard was talking about. But I think, we need to wake up call. We have to face the fact that the world has moved on to a certain point.
I think what's happening with SaaS and with SME adoption and the SME opportunity right now, it's creating silos in terms of cloud. Silos are bad, but you have to take a trade-off between allowing these SMEs into the marketplace and creating silos, or bringing in larger players like Amazon to own a much larger cloud. I think what we should focus on in terms of standardization is to actually remove those silos that exist right now. SaaS Assurance ourselves as a SaaS organization, we primarily work on a Microsoft platform. It's a cloud-based platform. You can access it with a browser. I'm currently looking at how I can interoperate currently with other SaaS vendors working on different platforms and the standards that are out there right now. I don't think there's enough of them. So I think a focus from a standardization point of view should be really remove the silos, allow the SMEs in, and to open leave it open for a fairer economy as well.
Okay, yeah.
Just one quick comment, and I'm sure you have questions from the floor. I mean, I really want to sort of go back to what Kate said. I mean, I think the standards will sort themselves out, and to some extent already have. What you need is interoperability of your regulatory and legal regimes. I mean, it's been said 100 times yesterday, and I'm sure everybody understands it, but gosh, it's not happening very fast, is it? And that's it. That's where you need to go.
Microphone down here, please.
Basically, you can talk about interoperability and open standards, but as long as there are still standards out there which are not interoperable with each other, you get any customer talking about an exit strategy. Well, it's exit for you as a business if you cannot provide one. So you would need interoperability to create that trust from the eventual customer.
Okay, I've been told by the organisers we've got to really close, but we just have one more question, please.
Thank you. I'm really honored, one from the audience. Well, a comment and a challenge to the panel. I think it's a very useful thinking that the SMEs who are agile and hungry for success will provide good cloud services for Europe. But on the comment on SaaS as a service and platforms, there is some kind of asymmetry between the idea that there are many small companies providing different parts of cloud services, and on the other end, there might be big public agencies who are savvy on procurement, but many public agencies, at least in smaller countries, are small, and they are not savvy on procurement. And they will have this problem, how do I really go about? I need a whole of government service, and that will consist of several cloud pieces, and who will piece them together for me? How do you deal with that?
And actually, that's a big challenge in the UK as well. So the British government has outsourced all of their people that know and understand IT, and it's left them with a void. David Cotterill was saying yesterday about how you really should, disaggregate the stack and buy the components, but that doesn't mean you need to be able to integrate them back in yourself. The solution, though, is, I would say, actually in those SMEs, that there are the SMEs that are providing software and platform, and there's a whole raft that are very happy to provide you with very cheap advice on how you can knit some of these bits together. And the piece of advice I always give to government procurement people is, if you have a need, go and Google it. Go and look on the web and find something that looks about right. And then if your supplier is saying that it's going to cost 10 times that, then challenge them. And try and learn, try and break down. Say, well, why does the hosting cost this? Why does the licensing cost this? Why does the support cost this? And just pick away with common sense. And failing that, engage some small local businesses and consultants who have some of the expertise and can be impartial, because they're not trying to sell you the whole package. They just want to advise you on what other people are doing.
It's basically what I said in my last slide, and it was the lower part, connect with the cloud brokers who know about the market, who can connect the dots for your organization and try to figure out what solutions may fit best in your organization or your personal situation, because they know the market. And so I do concur with my colleague saying try to find those consultants who have an understanding of those markets with all those tiny solutions which you eventually have to combine with each other.
Okay, I think we'll have to close that down. I hope I'm sorry, you'll have to ask it later. I'm really sorry.
It was not a question, it was just a clarification.
You've got the microphone, you're in charge.
I do. So just a clarification on what Maurice said about HNX. I think there is a misunderstanding. In our case, it's a scientific marketplace using cloud computing. Cloud computing is just a tool. The marketplace is about data, scientists, tools to make science excellence. So it's not exactly the same business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. I'd like you all to join me in thanking the panel. I think it's been really interesting. And we'll move on to the next.